Good afternoon and welcome to the Penfield Trails Committee meeting on October 5th. This is the first meeting we've had since June 1st, so we got a little bit of catch-up stuff to do here. But before we actually get into that, just want to welcome some new members to the Trails Committee. Don Hoyler, Liz Hoyler, Jackie Crispin are here, along with there's also my wife Peggy Ansaldi and Dan Driffel they've also joined. So we're trying to get some new members onto the Trails Committee, but there's always room for more. So if anyone's watching and wants to join, please reach out to either myself or Andrew Urkvitz in the Recreation Office. I'm Bob Ansaldi. I'm the sort of acting chairperson for the Trails Committee until our chairperson, Nels Carmen, comes back. So for now, you have to put up with me. We do have some minutes from the June meeting. Eleanor nicely took them. They look right to me, and since, well, Carol, I'm not sure if you were here. They look right to you?
Yes, I did read them, and I second them.
Okay, so I guess we'll consider them approved since. First thing we typically do is talk about what's happened in terms of our guided hikes since the last meeting. We have had a number of guided hikes, so just thought I'd run through what I recall, and then we'll fill in blanks a little bit. We did have a hike on June 11th at 4 Mile Creek. It was a nice hike. I think there was around 10 people there. It's a much smaller little park than I guess I completely understood. So where our typical guided hikes are 2 hours, or hour and a half, 2 hours, that one was done in about 40 minutes because total mileage of all of the trails at that park, or I'm not sure if it's a park, Tim, but it's at that site, is less than 3/4 of a mile. So there's not a lot of, but it's a very nice place. I highly recommend anybody who hasn't been there to go check it out. Definitely if you're going in the summer, wear bug spray because a lot of mosquitoes. In July, we had a nice hike at Abraham Lincoln Park. There were, about 12 of us on the hike, I believe. I think, I personally love that hike. Mm-hmm. Lots of ups and downs. I know there's some people in the room here that are not as much of a fan of it. Because it is difficult. It is probably the most difficult hike that we do as part of our Penfield hikes. And one of the things that was suggested on that hike is that we come up with some type of rating system. I think the suggestion was sort of 1 boot, 2 boot, 3 boot, and 4 boots. And I would venture to say that would clearly be our 4 boot hike.
At least.
So it's, and I think we need to make sure people understand what level of difficulty they're getting into. Because we had, in addition to the people that went on the hike and then said, oh, what have I got myself into? We also had people show up with strollers, trying to walk babies. They at least turned around and said, no, we're not going to do this. But I think we need to do a little bit of job communicating what the hikes are going to be like as we go forward.
A little bit more of a description in the booklet?
Yes.
Is there an action to do that, or how? I'm just curious how the meetings work, how the committee works.
To be honest, I'm not sure how this.
Okay.
Well, maybe let's just start with the reality of our scheduling here.
Okay.
We need to get at least the schedule figured out and something for the winter recreation bulletin has to get published, I think, this week, Tim?
It's very soon.
So, but that's just for anything up through, at least for the first 4 months of the year. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to do a description of those hikes, and that's part of one of the reasons we have to have this meeting tonight is to make sure we agree on what the hikes are going to be, at least for the first few months of the year. Whether or not we can then turn around and do a description, we'll have to see. For those of you who've never seen this, the lovely card that we always have has all of our hikes. This doesn't have to get published this week for all of next year. We have probably till the next meeting, and we can probably work on some descriptions. I think the priority is trying to get something, and at least know what we're going to do for the first few months of next year, down so we can get it into the recreation building. So,
Where can those cards be found? I mean, I know they have them in the library, in the rec center. Are they at kiosks as well?
So that's part of going down, just jumping ahead just a little bit. That's part of the project that Andrew and I have been working on, is updating the kiosks through Boy Scout projects, stuff like that. And that is certainly an opportunity that we can add, like a little pamphlet center where you can flip up and add pamphlets for just anybody walking, that type of deal.
Great.
So that's definitely in the works, and I don't want to get ahead too far on our agenda.
that's okay.
So.
We can jump in anywhere you want, Tim. So, yeah, Don, I agree. We need to figure out if we can write up some descriptions for at least the hikes for the first part of the year. Not sure how to approach that. In August, we had hike at Ellison Park, starting up on Penfield Road, and went down, all the way down to Blossom, and then turned around and came back. Again, a nice hike that's not quite as vigorous as the Abraham Lincoln Park, but it still had some ups and downs. And then in September, we did the Channing Philbrook Park. That was a very flat hike. Started out, actually, our Penfield Town historian came and gave us 10 or 15 minute little history of mainly around Daniel Penfield. Very interesting. I learned a lot on that. And then we stayed in the flat section. We walked all the way to down behind Tops to the kiosk there. So that was a real nice hike. And our supervisor has joined us in the room tonight, and she joined us on the hike. So nice to see you, Marie. And then September 24th, as part of the Shadow Pines event, had a guided hike led by Don and Liz Hoyler. If you two want to give an update on how that went.
Sure. Is my mic on? Yeah. So my personal take, and I think Liz would share this, is that it went really well. You know, we know the park very well, so I think we were able to, enhance the hike with some educational dialogue, and I thought it was really fun. We had a beautiful day. Weather was perfect, so that helps. Probably 10 to 12 people, I would say, or in that neighborhood, 15 at most. Apparently, your wife is spreading rumors that it was a really challenging hike, but
That is not true.
Your wife,
that she's not doing that, or that it wasn't challenging.
It was not challenging.
Anyway, we thought it was fun, and we enjoyed doing it, and it was a very engaged group, so it was good.
My only complaint on that hike was you made the rest of the hike leaders that do other hikes look bad, because you had a lot more education than I typically offer.
That wasn't the intent, and again, we know that park really well, so.
No, it was very well done. A lot of good information. I learned a lot about the plants and things like that in the area. So thank you very much for
Good.
that. As a unfortunate coincidence, our upcoming hike this coming Saturday happens to be also at Shadow Pines, and wondering if anyone else is planning to join us for that. Eleanor? Marie? Either of you like to lead that hike? Otherwise, Peggy and I will, but.
Oh, you go for it. You do such a good job. I was at your Channing Philbrook hike too, so I think you do such a good job. You should continue doing it.
No, you really need to experience the two of them doing hikes. They do a much better job.
Well, maybe they'll come too and you can share.
Our son's getting married Saturday out of town.
Or we would volunteer to do it again.
I'm
Or
not
we
sure
would be
that's a
happy to do
valid
that.
excuse.
Sorry,
No, I think the hike takes priority.
Yeah, what time is the wedding?
3:30, we could
Oh,
almost do it.
you have all morning. Come on.
where's the wedding? Rochester?
No, it's Buffalo.
Oh, you got plenty of time. No.
They're done by noon.
So as long as we're still on the subject of the hikes, the past hikes and stuff like that, just to go on the rating system, I think it would be a good idea since everybody's on the email chain, maybe a little homework for people that are on the hikes that are here, that have been. We can just give feedback by Friday, because I think that would be a good deadline. Email it to either Andy or Bob so they can get it into the recreation brochure. Just give your opinion, like a difficulty 1 out of 5 or the 1 out of 5 boots or.
I think I'm going to do, I'd suggest 1 out of 4 boots unless
Okay.
somebody.
Yep, and just everybody give their own opinion, and then they'll probably go from there to see difficulty-wise. I think that would be best as far as email would work best instead of waiting until next month or trying to hunt everybody down.
Probably do it right now.
And
I like Tim's idea about considering a rating system of 5.
5?
What, that was just, I was just,
I know you were just throwing it out there.
yep, just
but
throwing out there.
still
I like the
feel-
boots idea. It's more graphically, one boot, 2 boot, 3 boot, 4 boot. But
I'm open to either, if anybody
Yes.
else have opinions, as I'm just not sure that we can do that much differentiation of.
I mean, 4 boots is typical for any hiking manual or any guidebook you'd look at.
Yeah, I think that's where the idea was from the Adirondack Mountain Club hikes, I think.
All trails and things
Yeah,
like
all
that.
those use 4 boots, for what it's worth.
I like the consistency of using the same system as the Adirondack Guide.
Yeah, I agree.
I do just have to say that I can only stay until 5:30 this evening, so I apologize, but I didn't know if there was anything you specifically wanted me to address while I'm here. And I don't mean to hijack the agenda.
No, that's fine. I do not have anything. Does anybody have anything for Marie?
No, but you did say you were going to be discussing the use of the park, or what did you call that, Tim? Not-
Property, Shadow Pines property.
Shadow versus the way it is now? You said you're going to be
Maybe we
addressing?
should be- I do want to talk about what the schedule is for the hikes, but while Marie's here, maybe we should have that discussion about, clearly Shadow Pines has changed over the last couple of years. The disc golf and the other plans, it's really about the master plan for the,
I had no idea what disc golf was until I walked over there the other day. And frankly, I think we're going to be facing a lawsuit if we don't change the whole situation. If somebody gets hit by a disc and they throw them as hard as a golf ball, I would rather, golf courses don't let you just wander around aimlessly. And yet, as a hiker, I will not go over there and hike again because of the fear of being hit by one of these. And we invite anybody in the state of New York to be able to come over there and use that facility.
So the only thing I would address to, because I've had this concern from a couple of other people, in other places in Monroe County, this works very well, where they have the disc golf course intertwined with hiking trails. Pedestrians do have the right of way, and we've incorporated signage to that effect. I think in terms of a golf ball versus a Frisbee, they're very different things, to be perfectly honest.
I do
with you.
both. I do golf, so I'm familiar with how a golf ball coming at me and a
Sure.
Frisbee coming at me at 75, 90 miles an hour isn't something I want either.
Well, and then, to the point, I think that there's enough room in 212 acres for everyone. So remember that even though there's a disc golf course, there's also 99 square acres of 99 acres of hiking trail to the back. So I feel like there's room for a lot of different uses there. And I think, Tim, you've worked with the disc golf group before, and you have found them extremely helpful and cooperative when it comes to
Yes.
watching out for hikers.
And that's how the disc golf course was designed for, to try to minimize that between the walking trails. And Bob, myself, Andrew, and the president of the disc golf group, we met 2 Fridays ago? It was about 2 weeks ago. And we were discussed the layout of different trails, so we can cut different walking trails to go around certain holes, which are probably more aesthetically pleasing through those pine trees we talked about type deal, just so everybody can more or less coexist.
Now, yes, now I don't mean to interrupt you. I would say a month ago, I was approached about the placement of the practice baskets. I did go out there. I agreed that they were too close to the parking lot, and we had them moved. So I think we've been fairly responsive when people have had a concern. But if you go to Greece or Hilton, they both have disc golf courses right intertwined with the hiking paths, and they do it successfully.
I've hiked there several times since the disc golf has been very active, and my only suggestion was to make sure that the pedestrian, the walkers' trails are very obvious, because there's one section where I and my friend tend to walk down that there really isn't a trail. There used to be a usage kind of trail before mowing and so on was there. And it would really be helpful for them and us if the trails were really,
Yep.
really
I think
well
if that's,
designated.
if we're talking about the same spot, because I know it's kind of, it runs parallel to Sky Ridge.
Yeah.
That where, yes, that's the area that we met, and we're
Good.
going to put it, we're going to try to put the trail on the other side of those pine trees.
Yeah.
So it just loops around. It'd be a nice walk behind those pine trees and
But
through the woods.
we didn't have any problem with figuring out who was standing where and where they were going to be shooting and where we should be.
Yep.
And, you do have to think about it. You can't just walk blindly. But I've been over there walking several times with them, and it's,
We also talked with them about the fact that, and they're going to have signs up at their kiosk that state that pedestrians have the right of way, that they must essentially yield to.
The signs aren't out there yet.
Right, they're not out there yet, but that is part of what they have to do, they know they have to do. I also had the opportunity, there was about 6 weeks ago or something, there was they had a tournament going on, and at the same time, just a fluke scheduling, Genesee Valley Hiking Club had a event going on where they had 50 people that went through. While that tournament was going on, I had a chance to talk to the people from Genesee Valley Hiking Club, said, so how did that go? And they said, absolutely no problems. Everyone on the disc golf course just stopped and let us go through.
Which
So-
is what they should be doing.
Right, so I was
Right.
happy to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, your concern is very well intentioned, but I truly believe we're taking the steps we need to take to try to prevent any kind of issue. And again, seeing that it's done successfully other places in a smaller area, I would think that we could do this. I think we have to try it. And I think we've been responsive when there's been an issue. I know Tim has gotten right in contact with disc golfers, and they've been very accommodating. They're a pleasure to work with.
Is there a liability concern, though, at the end of the day? It's great when everyone behaves properly, but what if somebody doesn't?
Well, our attorneys have looked over the master plan and haven't had an issue with it, so I'm going to say that we're okay. I don't know if we have any increased liability for anything. Somebody falls off a rock, somebody walks into a tree, somebody slips off something and breaks their ankle. We're always going to be
Yeah.
concerned about liability.
And we have talked about signage. We got to get, we're working on new signage when we talk to the disc golf group. That puts the onus on everybody, not just one particular group or the other, where it's fair to everybody. It's just getting the wordage down right and getting the signs up and stuff like that. So,
And some marked trails.
and marking the trails so people go in the right direction.
But I think it makes me very happy that 50 hikers went through and there wasn't an issue. So let's see how it goes.
But it's also easy for the disc golfers to see a group of 50. One individual can easily be missed, so
Very true.
They have been very respectful to me as well, even when I was on my bike and accidentally ended up where I shouldn't
The
have.
parking lot was pretty well full, but it was mostly people getting out of their cars with their little baggies, now they've got disc golf bags.
yep.
In taking them in. And actually, it's open to everybody. I just don't know why I don't know, maybe we ought to be charging people that come here from other areas?
Well, actually, we are looking at our fee structure for the beginning of the year. We're not going to start it in
Yeah.
mid-year. Because you're right, because every time a group comes in, if it's an organized group, that takes facilities, that takes Tim's time.
Well, sure it
To
does.
make sure everything is ready and things like that. So that is on our agenda.
Okay, good.
Can I raise one other one while you're still here?
Sure.
So we've heard that people have been spotted kind of coming out of Harris Whalen Park with bushels of ramps to like sell them or donate.
Which is prohibited.
Which is prohibited.
Bushels of what?
Ramps.
Wild leeks
Okay.
that are a food. They grow wildly.
They grow in the spring, like around
Yeah,
May.
and so I know I think there is some signs about that are, all faded and hard to read, so I'm sure part of it is.
Don't pick the wildlife.
Yeah,
Yes.
those kinds of things, but, so maybe it's just an FYI that stuff is going on. I'm not sure I have a proposed solution.
I know we can update, because there was a Boy Scout project that they put a brand new kiosk in there at the
Yeah.
head of the trail. That's just more signage we can put up and, get rid of the old faded ones and put up new signage.
But maybe it's just an awareness thing that's.
Yeah, we do need to be realistic, too, that we don't
Yeah.
have 24/7
No, oh, I know,
security
I
there.
know.
So there's a certain amount of
It never would
honor
have,
system.
Apparently, they're being sold to restaurants.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's like a remote sensor, perhaps something like that, or even the threat of a remote sensor might be something to consider.
never would have occurred to me to go into a park to
But
pick
actually,
bushels of
there's,
stuff.
I'm concerned because there are significantly fewer ramps over the past couple of years.
Right.
So not only are they being foraged, they're being over-foraged.
Over-foraged, right.
So it is a
Yep.
concern.
Yep.
What are they, mushrooms, Don?
No, they're greens. They're like small onions-ish.
Saw them up there.
Very good, kind of like a mild onion or garlic flavor.
Listen to Braiding Sweetgrass. You'd hear a whole chapter where she talks about that.
Well, that's on my list to read, by the way,
You
Braiding
should.
Sweetgrass. So,
You should.
yeah, I've just heard wonderful things about it.
It is.
It's delightful.
Is there anything else?
Not for me.
Okay, my sincerest apologies. I just have to get ready for town board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Of course.
Okay. Let's keep the guided hike schedule to the last thing. Just, Tim, if you want to give an update on any Eagle Scout projects or anything like that going on?
So I don't have the actual spreadsheet in front of me, but I know that that we've put up 3 new kiosks since last summer, the last time we all met. Over the summer, they did the projects up at Harris Whalen. There's a new project there. There was a kiosk there on the start of the back 9. That is also a new one. And they did paint and put new plexiglass, I believe, in the one on the front 9. So we got still a couple more in the works. We are in the works of an orienteering course on the front 9 for, that's a Boy Scout project that's in the works. That's just the posts with the signs and stuff like that.
So that's the north side?
Yeah, that's on the front 9, the old front 9, yeah.
Okay.
The north side, yeah, sorry. And on the back. It's a big project. But yeah, other than that, as far as Scout projects go, I think we're pretty much caught up on a lot of the stuff that they had planned for the year. There is one they plan on making a kiosk specifically for the disc golf people, so they can post all the rules there, and then we can put more of our information on the kiosk in the front 9.
Other than working on the schedule, is there anything else anyone else wants to talk about? Okay. Do all of you have copies of the schedule sheet? So I sent this out on Saturday or Sunday with a proposed schedule for next year. Don sent back some very good comments of things that I hadn't thought through in terms of like when things, we need to worry about mud. So I think, for some reason, I just didn't think of that. So let me just give you a little bit of my thought pattern of what I did. As you can see, I went through, looked at what was scheduled for the last 3 years. I tried to change things up a little bit. I intentionally got rid of 4 Mile Creek off the list because, like I said, I just don't see that that's worth doing as one of our Saturday hikes. It's just too small. It appeared, even though I've never attended one, and Eleanor, you've been on this longer than I, the idea that we've had one hike outside of Penfield, is that a regular occurrence? I see it Powder Mill and Webster 4 Mile Creek.
Well, we've done the Gosno Big Woods in Webster and the 4 Mile Creek, but that's basically it.
Because it looked like there was one at Powder Mill, or actually scheduled for Powder Mill, and maybe I'm not sure if we actually did it.
Yeah, we did that.
Okay. So I guess that's a question as part of our Penfield hike series, if we want to still take some Penfield people other places.
Bob, are we going to have an indoor hike as we did last March?
That's up for discussion. Part of that is.
I mean, it wasn't really a hike, but it lent an opportunity for Victor and Webster, Penfield, other towns to come and talk about what they're doing. I thought it was valuable.
Yeah, I think the question is whether or not, Nels did a very nice job as a program talking about things. We'd have to get someone who could sort of do some type of presentation. I know I don't have the background to do the type of stuff he did.
Well, I don't think we have to show that old tape that he showed, but we could do something, because maybe February or March, we could have not weather conducive to hiking.
Well, again, that's we got to go through, because I personally like to be out in the winter and walk. I love to walk around Shadow Pines in the snow. So let me suggest this. Sort of start at the top, whether or not we want to change anything. January has traditionally been our hike at Ellison Park. Start at what either is or what used to be the ice rink. I'm not sure if it's still there. And then walk up to Fort Schuyler, and that has been opened up for us, and at least the last couple of years that I participated in it. Nels has been up there, started a fire, and we get up there and he's got hot chocolate and stuff like that. That seems to have worked out well. I propose we keep that, unless someone's got an objection to it.
Sounds like fun.
But it will require, we're just going to have, because, like I said,
One to four boots. How many?
That's what I was going to ask the same thing, Tim.
Because if it was summer, I would call it 2. 4 being the worst. Let's just make sure 1 being the easiest. In the summer, I would call it a 2. In the winter, depending on how much snow, it's easily a 3 because of, like last year we were walking through snow and some people had snowshoes on, some people were actually wearing cross-country skis. So I guess I would rate it a 3 in the winter.
2 summer, 3 winter.
So no steep hills like this?
No, there's a gradual uphill or downhill, right? Just that road that goes up to the parking lot? Is that how you go? I don't know what route you take. Maybe I shouldn't.
So that's part of, that's a good point. What I did last year was basically went up the road.
Yeah.
And then we went down that one quick steep section.
And across the bridge?
And cross the bridge. If that is slippery, I would not do that again. Well, depending on who we had, I'd probably go back down the road. But again, it all depends on the weather. So that down that hill might not be bad, but I would certainly have to play it by ear based on the weather and the people participating.
Right. So it would be a 2 with no steep hills. If the group was up to a steep hill, you could do more of a loop instead of an out and back.
See, I would wear snowshoes myself, but that, I just don't think that many people will have them, or if they have, or if they're on skis, they're never gonna be able to do a steep hill.
Yeah. I mean, that one is really contingent on weather.
Right.
It really is.
And the route you go and,
And the route you go could be adjusted on the fly, right?
right, because you have the opportunity to go around the backside or closer to Browncroft to loop around, but again, it depends on the,
So that's one that probably deserves a pretty good description, so people know what they're potentially getting into.
the February hike, and Tim, I put down February 18th. Do you happen to know, I guessed on the date. That has always been our night hike as part of the Penfield Winter Festival, or whatever they call it, which is the Friday closest to the full moon.
Yes. I think that was a pretty good guess. I wouldn't put it in stone, but probably 90%. That's when they normally do it.
So what we've done in the past for that, and I certainly would suggest we do it again, I'm not sure, Tim, if you or Nels, someone has gone out with glow sticks, and
That's been Andrew. He goes out like the morning of and puts out the glow sticks,
Okay.
and then cracks them during right before the event.
and basically makes these nice little marked trails. And again, depends on the snow level of snow. Some people have been wearing snowshoes, other people are in boots. That is,
Do you go down the hill to the bottom part?
I think it all depends what trail they took. If you went behind the water tower, that's a pretty steep hill, but you can make it all the way around and up. That's the only real gradual.
Yeah.
That's the only real gradual. So
So same thing,
Same thing.
A 2
2 to 3.
contingent on weather?
yes, I would, certainly in the summer it's a 2, but it's in the winter, especially behind the fire tower, it was icy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we avoided going down that way, but came back up and it was fine. So, but what we've done in the past is starting, I believe it's 6:30, I think it's 6:30, and then again at 7 and 7:30, or maybe it's 6, 6:30 and 7. We've done just basically mini hikes. So you go out for 20, 25 minutes and you come back and then start again and take a different path, because usually we set up 2 or 3 different loops.
And you advertise that in association with the winter carnival or whatever?
Yes.
So the full moon is on the 5th of February next year.
Okay, so the February 18th, it probably is not right,
That's about as dark as it gets.
which would actually be good, because I think we might actually get more people if it's not February break week. So,
No, we'll just have to check on that date,
Yes.
on when Recreation is planning that.
right.
So if that's going to be a Friday night, not part of our normal second Saturday, would that be an opportunity to do the indoor hike, maybe? That, the second Saturday of February?
We could, or we wait and do them.
As opposed to consuming one of the other?
Yeah, I think it would all be up to Recreation, and I know like what Bob mentioned before, Nell's setting up the program, and if somebody took the lead on that, contacting all the different hiking groups, that kind of thing. I don't know if that'd be too much for Rec at that point, because they'd be focused on that, the winter night.
Especially if that happened to be the night before.
Yes, that would be, I think it all depends on the
Well-
timing of the,
If it's the 5th or the 6th, then the following would be the 13th, the second would be the 13th. So it would be skewed by a week. Just, I know Carol suggested we try to hold that indoor hike. Just a thought.
It's more of a educational type thing.
Yeah, we came to it, so I
Yeah, and
saw
I
it.
think, the environmental group, the Penfield Green people
Yeah.
were here and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
No, that was
sort of
good.
engaged more people.
Oh,
Right.
that's right.
It was good. I'd rather not consume one of the actual hikes.
Yeah, and that was part of, I liked the idea of, and having a true long winter hike, and Shadow Pines seemed to be a potential good place for it. That's why I put that in March was my suggestion. Because usually first week in March around here is often a snowy time. I know it's, you never know.
March
It
is
is.
a,
We get hit with storms
you
a
don't know
lot
what to
in
expect in March.
Right. We've had ice storms, we've had blizzards, and we've had mud.
80,
Right.
80 and sunny, right?
If you did Shadow Pines, would you do the front or back nine?
In the winter,
Back nine, I guess, it could be tricky in the winter.
Yeah, there's a couple spots.
I'm not sure I'd go down the hill to the creek, would be my, I think I'd
Yeah,
probably
only
stay
if the-
relatively flat.
Yeah, only if the snow was melted.
Snowshoes are little crampon
You need,
things.
you need crampons
Right.
for the back nine
It's the way to do that
when
hill.
it's snowy or icy.
Or stick it to the edge of the sidewalks, to the pavement.
Even that can be sketchy.
Right.
But, again, it's typically whoever's leading it, but I personally, I think I would avoid the hills if it was any chance of ice. So I would probably keep it to relatively simple.
So Shadow Pines in March would be a 2?
I would think so.
Well, if we're talking the north side, for sure, too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, the only thing that just makes it tough is if it happens to be in a foot of snow.
Yeah.
Weather dependent.
Right.
Well, that would be, yeah, that would apply to anywhere we go.
So let's just look back. I like that idea of potentially doing the indoor hike, if you want to call it, or the hiking educational session in February. The second, so it'd be the second Saturday of February, which is probably, it'd be the 12th.
It's the 11th.
11th.
Is it the 11th?
Where is the Veterans Memorial?
I w-
You're in it.
The same thing when I read that. It's right here.
It's right here. You're in Veterans Memorial Park right now.
So,
I think I could like that.
unless somebody disagrees, I think we just go with the idea of having that extra session indoor hike on the second Saturday. Liz,
The
did
11th?
you say that's the 11th? Because that doesn't compute for me.
Well, the first Saturday is the 4th, so the second Saturday is the 11th.
And the full moon is the
The
Sunday.
full moon is the 5th.
So the
Sunday.
third would be the Friday night closest to the full moon, if that's what carries the day. I
That's
don't
the
know if that's what
2023
carries the day,
calendar? Liz,
I'm sorry?
that's a 2023 calendar?
but I looked at the same thing.
Liz, I call those my smartphones.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm kind of old fashioned.
I pull out the doctors, I say, see my smartphone?
Because that then makes me question a lot of my other dates here, if I happen to have.
Did you have a 2022 maybe? I didn't check the dates, I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Clearly, we need to check the dates, because now I'm questioning my dates that I've put in here.
But Liz has one.
No, Saturday's the
Oh,
18th.
yeah, your dates are wrong, Bob.
It was a long weekend. Okay, moving on to April. My suggestion is Veterans Memorial Park, which is where we are right now. It is
Are you talking about the trails?
Yes.
In the woods? Okay, really muddy
is it okay? That's what
in
I.
April. It's
The-
wet back there, Tim, you know.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
really wet back
So,
there.
okay, so that's probably not a good idea. I will tell you the reason I thought of it, not thinking about the mud, was the last time Peggy and I tried to go in there was like in June, and we got chased away by a billion mosquitoes. So I'd like to get, it seemed like an easy hike, a one boot hike that we could add to the schedule, but the question is when? When is it not muddy and not mosquito-y? And maybe that's,
Might be in the fall.
I was going to say, maybe we move it to the fall.
Or maybe switch it with Shadow Pines in March.
It would be just as muddy if it, in
Just as
March.
muddy?
Unless it was icy, unless there was snow. And that's going to be the same anywhere.
So you need a drought in order to have it?
Could we go back to February for the full moon thing? Is that I have the 5th for Sunday, as a Sunday.
Yes.
Is it, and it's supposed to be on a Sunday?
No, that's when the full.
What they said is the Friday closest to the full moon
Well, if
would
that's
be
not,
the target. So it would be,
Would be the
it would be
third.
the third.
Third, correct.
If that guidance holds.
so that's what we're going to stay with, is the 3rd then?
Well, we are not going to control the date. The town recreation department will pick
Yeah.
the date of the winter festival, and we get to play along, I guess is the,
Right. So they go first, and then we, if
Okay.
it's not the.
whatever
10th,
date they picked.
It's what, yeah, it's whatever date Andrew picks.
Right.
Okay.
Is he, and he'll have to do that before the winter bulletin gets.
Yeah, so they'll probably have that decided
Because you've got to
soon.
publish it in that
Yes.
little booklet. that you
Yep.
said.
They probably already have, we just don't know what it,
I'm trying to find it on the town site, but.
Probably not there yet.
Okay.
okay, so if Veterans Memorial Park is not a good idea in April,
Maybe move that to November. And then, so what's not muddy? Right?
Sherwood's
What's
not too muddy.
Sherwood,
And certain. well,
for the
couple
most
little
part, is
spots.
not muddy.
It's a lot of gravel.
It's mostly gravel and
I found it, I literally had water up over my
Water,
ankles.
yes.
wet, but not mud.
There's a
So you
lot.
can wear water boots.
Up to my knees, water boots.
Well,
Because
okay.
I know I came into a lot
I
of.
agree that Oh, yeah, there's
I
a lot of
love-
water,
I love Sherwood,
but
don't
not-
get me wrong, but.
not necessarily mud. It's one of the main trails.
I guess I don't know Gosnell. Gosnell might not be,
Gosnell's wonderful.
that might
So-
not be muddy, because
So-
that's up kind of high.
Yeah, that's.
well, Gosnell has two sections. It sort of reminds me a little bit of Shadow Pines in that there's a huge field. that
You talking
could-
about Whiting?
No, Gosnell, which is next to Whiting,
Yeah, I know. I don't know where the
Yeah.
big open field is. Okay.
By
I
the-
just don't know it.
right by the parking lot. And then you go down, then there's trails that go down into a hilly section that could be, could be muddy or slippery. I'm not sure I've ever been over there in April.
Why do we do
I
whiting?
was there in April with Megan, and I don't remember it being muddy. But I wasn't on the field either. I was up towards Lake Road.
Gosnell is, or
Yeah.
Whiting? Gosnell?
Gosnell. Actually, we were both.
So you think Gosnell would work in April? Well, we have the option, because if we found out it was muddy in the back, in the hilly section, we just stay up on the big field.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is a suggestion of Gosnell in April.
And not veterans, not the park here.
Correct.
Swap it with veterans.
Okay.
So swap what I currently have listed as for April and
Okay.
May. And again, don't trust any dates that I have
What are you
listed.
gonna do, what are you gonna do in May? Or haven't we gotten there yet?
I think we're just off by one,
Well, no, we're switching
the dates.
May to April.
No, I'm in the dates. We're just off by one for the most part.
Just put veterans in May. Just swap the two.
Yeah, just swap it? Okay.
Do we
And
give
then-
veterans a 1 or a 2?
Veterans is a 1, in my opinion.
Even after-
What about Gosnell? I probably don't. It's probably a 2. What I know of it?
Most of it's a 2. There might be a
What are you talking about, Webster now, Gosnell?
Yeah.
Gosnell.
I've never done Gosnell, I would say,
I'd-
if it's like Whiting, there's one section of Whiting that could be a 3.
Absolutely. I agree.
straight
Yeah,
down.
that's why I'm kind of hesitating. It's mostly a 2, but there
Mostly a 2, but
could
there's
be a
a,
couple of 3 hills in there.
right.
Well, typically you rate by the
Highest,
hardest,
yeah.
the hardest section.
So I think you'd have to call it a 3 if we go into the woods.
Yep.
You know, like all rating systems, it's all relative to the other hikes you do, because even what we list as a 4 here, the Adirondack Mountain Club might list as a 1.
Yep,
So it just has to be relative to our own hikes.
that's right.
Okay.
Which then leads to June. I just threw down Harris Whalen just because I had thrown something in May, but
The thing about Harris Whalen is it's a really nice hike when all the trillium is in bloom, which is probably April and May. I don't think they're still blooming by June. So maybe do Harris Whalen in May and move veterans to
Were
June?
they blooming last year?
I don't know.
I could have sworn it was, but.
I thought they were. That was May.
Brilliant. He really was good on the trillium.
so you think Harris Whalen in May? Again, the question is, for veterans, by early June, is it going to be
Yeah,
uninhabitable by the humans? Are the mosquitoes going to be bad by then?
I guess we could try it this way and just watch more closely for the next year. I don't know. I'm not sure how long they bloom. It's not positive. It is beautiful when they do, though. It's unique.
So we got through the schedule far enough that of what we have to do. Let me suggest that we probably wanted to try to adjourn sometime by 6 o'clock. So let's try to talk through the rest of the year, see if we can come to some consensus on what might make sense. Last few years in July, we've done Abraham Lincoln Park. We haven't been to Lucian Morin Park, also known as the Rifle Range Trail, in a couple of years. What I do know is Lucian Morin will clearly get a 4 on the rating scale.
Where do you start, Lucian?
I gave it a 4.
Oh, Lucian Morin.
You
Empire Boulevard?
Start down Empire Boulevard is one approach. The other approach, which I've never done, but
From Browncroft?
I'd like to try to do that, but
That would be a little tricky. It's all single. It's pretty narrow, and it's on, parts of it are on the side of the ravine.
okay, so probably wouldn't want to take a group that way.
You would,
Do it with
we
us,
should,
and then
we should go.
You know the groups better than
We do it all the time. We know it
Okay, so,
well.
yeah, well, but the idea of the hike, Lucian Morin in July, see,
That's fine.
Yeah, it's nice and shady.
right.
It's very steep. It's 4.
Did we decide on boots for the Fort Schuyler one?
Yeah, we said,
A 1?
Two in the summer, 3 in the winter, weather dependent,
Oh, okay.
and depending on which route.
Right.
Depending on which route.
Thank you.
August, we've done Ellison Park from Penfield Road for many years. It seemed to fit it.
That was nice. It's dry by then.
Right.
2 boots?
What?
2 boots?
Oh, if we went up that,
Well, it's 3. I would call it at least a 3.
at least a 3, yeah.
You can make it, you can easily make it a 4. There's one section that we didn't do last time that I wouldn't take a group on, because that would probably be a 6.
I could maybe go up that, going down. It's treacherous.
September, again, traditionally been the Penfield history hike.
So that one is dry. That's one you could do in the spring when a lot of the other ones are muddy, but I don't know how entrenched the September is from the history perspective or.
Absolutely not entrenched. It was, well, in the past, Nels has been one who knew the history, so whenever he was there. This year, invited, and now I'm drawing a blank on her name, the town historian, and she,
Bob, we only did one section of the Philbrook the last time we walked, which was excellent. It was good timing and all that. What about combining it or doing it another date, going the other direction?
well, I think that was what was in my head, was at least every other year go a different direction. So the fact that the hike that we just did was toward Tops,
Okay.
I would definitely, the next time we go there, either go all the way up the creek to the end, well, basically the town line where it ends, or up Honey Creek, the Honey Creek Trail. So,
If you go to, all the way to the end, you cross those bridges, that's probably a 3, because those bridges are, you know,
Yeah.
those bridges are not for the faint of heart.
Bridge over there, right?
yeah,
Oh, yeah, and I got stitches and everything. That was, after we came back from Iceland, hiked 40 miles, I come up
At the other end.
it was wet and slippery, but I'm a klutz.
the question is, do we want to still do that in September? That trail has been usually in good shape at that point of the year. But again, it all depends on the particular, depends on
Is
the amount
any
of
of the history relative to the direction you go in? I mean, are they pointing things along the way towards Tops, or it's not like?
No, the history is more just a discussion before we get started.
Oh, okay. So you
And
could
the
go either direction.
Right. The reason for the history being as part of Channing Philbrook is just because all the
Yeah,
mills that were there,
okay.
since that's where
Why
the
don't we
town.
leave it, I mean, September's a nicer time, you'll probably get better attendance, probably get better weather
Yep.
for now.
And then October,
And the number of boots depends on which direction you go. I'd call it a 1 towards Tops and a 3 towards Spring
right.
Lake.
But since my thought is, again, it's always been whoever's leading the hike gets the pick.
Yeah,
But in my head, I was thinking we could reverse directions every time we go. So since we just did toward Tops,
yeah, then we should call it a 3 at least. Those bridges are tricky, right? You could almost argue a 4 for the one that has kind of the skewed, well, there's a couple spots that are pretty tricky.
Tim, do you know any history? Are there any plans to rebuild those, or have the Boy Scouts rebuild those, or?
So I think it's beyond the Boy Scout repair. I think it's, you got to call in the Corps of Engineering to drill the holes and all that fun stuff. So that has been in the talks in the past, in the last couple years, but it comes down to funding and all that, because it's an expensive project to do a bridge all the way from, it's like 3 separate bridges, if I'm not mistaken. I'm assuming, last time we talked about it, would be one continuous bridge with that curves around the ledge there.
That would be
So,
really nice.
Yes, it would be super nice. But
It'd be a tricky bridge.
yes, it's been talked about, but as far as immediate plans, no immediate plans as of right now.
Abraham Lincoln absolutely would be a 4 boot.
Yep.
The only question I have on that one is the last couple years, we've started from Empire Boulevard. 3 years ago, we started down coming in off of Smith Road.
Did you drive all the way down to the lodge and park there?
No, we parked about halfway down. There was a small parking
Yeah, I know
lot.
what you mean.
What I don't know is, Eleanor, do you know why we switched?
I don't know that there was really a specific reason. I can see doing it every other year or whatever. I didn't hear of a reason for switching.
So let me suggest this, if we're going to keep that there, is listed as Abraham Lincoln, but before we publish the little card, we need to make a decision. I'm assuming we'll publish this till well past the next meeting. We need to decide on a starting location. So if any of you have the opportunity to go and check out the starting points down on Smith Road, I can't remember exactly how much parking there was.
I think there was a new lodge built down
Yeah.
along the thing, and then remnants of an old one, and,
No, you could now,
but then we went up and on the hills, and
Isn't there something, though, that there's a gate and that's only open when the lodge is rented?
I'm not sure what we'd have to, I think you would want to park all the way down to the lodge, but yes, the gate down to the lodge is not always open. So,
So we need to find that out, whether or not.
I believe that's either the county or Webster. I can't remember whose lodge it
It's a
is.
county park.
Yeah, so that would be a, call the county and see if they can open up the lodge or that gate for the weekend.
Right.
Because they have the keys on that, yes.
Okay, I will, because we certainly don't want to publish that we're going to start down there and then find out the gate's closed.
and there's a boat launch down there for, kayaks and things, so it might be open on weekends by default, but maybe not. And probably not in October, it probably isn't.
He said it was a boat launch. Don said there's a boat launch down there, so consequently it should be open.
And then November,
I don't know if it'll be open in October.
I suggested moving Thousand Acre Swamp there, and my reason for that was last December, we went there, and the boardwalk was rather icy.
Greasy or icy?
Yeah, it was sort of a little bit of each.
Yeah.
So even I was a little bit concerned about taking people there. So I was thinking moving that to November.
I like that it has the wire mesh on it.
Yeah, I like
That helps a lot.
But the ice, even the ice on the
Well, yeah,
wire
with
mesh,
ice, that won't matter, but
He's talking about 2008.
I would call that,
He's talking about
without the ice, I would call that a 1, because that's a pretty easy hike.
Jackson Road.
it's too bad we can't do that in the spring. Have you ever been there when the spice bushes are blooming? There's sort of a yellow understory haze. It's just beautiful.
when is that, Eleanor?
When, just as the leaves are coming
April,
out.
Probably April.
April?
Yeah.
April, maybe May.
But it might be muddy.
I don't know how muddy that trail is.
I don't think
Because
it'd
there's
be,
wood, there's planks over and
There's
bridges in
a lot
some
of
areas.
boardwalks, yeah.
So that might be,
do we want to move that to April and then move Gosnell to November? I'd be okay with that.
So we're talking now about switching the Thousand Acre Swamp to April?
Yes.
Okay.
That makes sense? If,
If you
I-
think it might be
Fine
less
with me.
icy.
Would be nice to see these spice bushes.
Yes, it would be.
I think Gosnell's probably nice no matter when we do it, so.
Like, yeah. Gosnell is in November then.
And then do Gosnell in November, right?
Right. And then Sherwood, I threw in December, 1, because we hadn't hit it on the schedule, and 2, I think it's got flexibility given the weather.
It's a great snowshoe trail there. If people are.
yeah, it doesn't
choosing
snow
to
that much in
snowshoe.
December anymore. Doesn't snow much in December anymore, but it could. And it is a good snowshoe trail, for sure.
We can't plan the snow.
But that would seem to be a 1-boot hike there.
Yeah, it's a one boat. I agree with that.
Okay.
But as far as Tim and Andrew are concerned, they're only publishing the first 3 hikes. Is that the issue, Tim?
I'm not too positive on that. And Andrew's been taking control, like, that's what his department does, so I'm assuming it would just be, the more information we can get to him, the better.
Right. We won't have what I'd suggest is we don't have the cards made up yet. But however far the winter catalog is going to go, we're sort of committed. So, but I just don't know if that's through March or through April?
Yep, I can't remember how far it goes, maybe April, but I know then they put out the spring, summer one, and that would add like the other, I couldn't tell you when the cutoff is for months for that catalog.
Yeah. So let me suggest this. With my notes, I'm going to put out via email what I think we just agreed on. I will try to make sure I got the dates actually correct. If anybody thinks that I got it wrong from what we just discussed, let me know. And then if anybody has any suggestions on some quick descriptions, one, I probably call it, 2 or 3 sentence descriptions of any of these, feel free to send them over to me.
Just suggested would just be to keep it simple, like stroller, no stroller, snowshoe, no snowshoe type deal. Just super simple so it can capture people's attention,
Thank you.
which is easy enough. That's just my suggestion.
Good point. Hilly.
Hilly, yep. Long flat areas, yeah, that kind of
muddy.
stuff.
Yeah, potential for mud. Yeah.
Anything else, folks?
If you know Ginny Wilterdink, she is one of the founders of the Trails Committee. She is having a birthday party that she's throwing on October 13th at the, I think at the pavilion down
Is it
here.
100?
It's her 100th birthday party, and she is inviting anybody that would like to come.
And where,
From
I
4
worked with her 40 years ago.
to 7.
I would absolutely love to see her on her birthday.
Honey Creek, that
yes.
nothing about it.
Yep.
So where is it?
It's in the pavilion.
So it would be
here
Dolomite Lodge, if it's
Yeah.
the one, yep, Dolomite Lodge at Veterans Memorial Park.
From 4 to 7,
The date again?
the 13th.
I think we need to build a trail
October.
and
Oh, it's
Her
coming.
birthday is
Wilterdink Trail.
actually the
Yes.
10th, I think. And she'll be 100.
that is so cool.
And the RPO is having a little celebration after the concert Saturday.
She's ushered there ever
What's
since
her name again?
we've gone.
Ginny Wilterdink.
The last place I saw her actually was when she was ushering there a couple
Yeah.
years ago.
She's a real character.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
She's a good nurse.
And the date again, is that
Anything else, folks?
October what again?
13th.
Then I would say we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.